The dew that drank me. It was late at night, and Dave had just pulled an all-nighter cramming for finals. His body begged for energy, and he knew just where to find it. In the back of the fridge sat a lone can of Mountain Dew, glowing faintly under the dim fridge light, like some sort of elixir of life. Just one sip, he thought. That's all I need to get through this. As he cracked open the can, a strange fizz escaped, much louder than usual. He shrugged it off, lifting the can to his lips. But as the neon green liquid touched his tongue, something changed. It tasted off. Not bad, just different. It was sweeter, thicker, almost like it was alive. Suddenly, the can grew heavier in his hand. The liquid bubbled up, spilling over the rim. But he couldn't stop drinking. His hand just wouldn't let go. It was as if the drink was pulling itself onto him. Panicked, Dave tried to put the can down, but his arm jerked upwards instead, forcing more of the dew down his throat. The fizzing grew louder, almost like whispering voices filling his ears.
Do the dew. Become the dew.
He stumbled back from the fridge, gasping for air. His vision swam, the edges of his sight tinged with neon green. His body felt heavy, weighed down by something other than exhaustion. He heard the rustling of something huge behind him. Slowly, he turned around, and that's when he saw it. A massive, towering figure loomed in the kitchen doorway. It had the body of a bear, but its fur was bright green, its eyes glowing the same neon yellow as the Mountain Dew he had just consumed. The creature's presence filled the room with an electric hum. Its fur shimmered like a carbonated drink, and with every breath it took, the sound of fizzling soda filled the air. It opened its mouth to roar, but instead of a ferocious growl, the sound that escaped was the unmistakable crack of a freshly opened soda can. It lumbered toward Dave, each step causing the floor to shake. The whispers in his head grew louder.
You summoned me. Now face the dew.
Dave tried to back away, but his legs wouldn't move. The bear's glowing eyes locked onto his, and with one swift movement, it knocked the empty can from his hand. The can rolled across the floor, stopping at the bear's massive paw. It roared again, louder this time. The fizzling in Dave's veins reached a boiling point. He collapsed to the ground, his body trembling. His skin began to stretch again, turning to an unnatural shade of green as the Mountain Dew inside him bubbled violently. The Mountain Dew bear crouched over him, its glowing eyes narrowing.
You've become one of us.
It growled in a voice that fizzed like carbonation. With a final gurgle, Dave's body dissolved into a puddle of neon liquid, seeping into the floor. The bear let out one last crackling roar before picking up the empty can with its massive claws, crushing it effortlessly. As it lumbered back into the darkness, the bear left behind a glowing trail of green liquid. The last thing to fade was the faint hiss of fizzing and the ominous message that echoed through the empty house.
You've been dewed, and the bear is always thirsty.
The Pepsi Mice Takeover. It was just another night for Max, a YouTuber with a modest following who specialized in trying out weird snacks and sodas. He recently received a mysterious package marked with the unmistakable Pepsi logo and an odd note. For your next video, taste the revolution. Max, always up for a challenge, set up his camera and lights, placing the cans in front of him. Alright guys, tonight's video is sponsored by... He hesitated, noticing something strange. The cans weren't just normal Pepsi. The labels read, Pepsi, Extreme Squeak Edition with cartoonist mice on them. He shrugged it off, figuring it was some kind of weird marketing stunt. He cracked open a can, and immediately an eerie high-pitched squeak echoed through his room. Max paused, laughing nervously. I guess that's part of the gimmick. He took a sip. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he saw movement. He spun his chair around. There, scurrying out from the shadows, was a small mouse. But not just any mouse. It had fur the same shade of Pepsi blue. And was that a logo on its side? Before Max could process what was happening, more blue mice emerged, flooding into the room from under his desk, the vents, even through the cracks in the door. They weren't just normal mice. They seemed to glow with an unnatural energy, and their eyes gleamed like soda bubbles. Panicking, Max knocked over his camera as the mice advanced, circling him. Their tiny squeaks formed an odd rhythm, almost like chanting. His screen flickered, displaying the Pepsi logo, but distorted, its colors bleeding into each other. The largest mouse, clearly the leader, climbed onto his desk, squeaking loudly as if to give an order. In unison, the mice charged, leaping onto Max, nipping at his clothes, his skin. But it wasn't the bites that scared him. It was what came after. With every bite, Max felt a strange fizzing sensation, like carbonation bubbling under his skin. His veins pulsed with blue, his body reacting to the invasion of the Pepsi plague. He stumbled, tripping over his setup, his hands and arms turning an alarming shade of neon blue. Just as his vision started to blur, the screen on his computer flickered back to life. The distorted Pepsi logo morphed into text.
You are the brand now.
Max tried to scream, but all that came out was a high-pitched squeak. His last thought before everything went dark was that maybe, just maybe, he should have stuck with Coke. Coca Colossal Bird Chaos. Jenna, a rising Twitch streamer known for her cursed taste test streams, had just received a strange PR package. It was from Coca-Cola, but the label looked off. Instead of the familiar red and white, the packaging had a sleek black design with a tagline that read, "Unlock the Coke experience. Wings of refreshment." Alright chat, Jenna grinned, adjusting her webcam and mic. We're doing something wild today. I don't know what Coca-Cola's thinking, but let's try this wings of refreshment flavor. As soon as she cracked open the can, the sound wasn't a typical soda fizz. Instead, it sounded like wings flapping. She glanced around her room, unsettled. Did anyone else hear that? She asked her chat, but they were already spamming confused emotes. She took a sip. The taste was off too. More metallic, less sweet, and her room felt strangely colder. She shrugged it off and decided to power through. Maybe it's just an acquired taste or something. But then it happened. From the corner of her room, something fluttered. At first, Jenna thought it was her fan messing with her hair, but then she saw it, a dark shape on her bookshelf. A bird, not just any bird, a small red feathered bird with a Coca-Cola logo on its chest. Before she could react, the bird let out a shrill crow and flew straight at her face. She screamed, knocking over her drink as she tried to bat it away. The chat exploded with WTF and OMG, thinking it was some kind of prank. But then came more flapping. From her window, from each ceiling, from the air vents, dozens of Coca-Cola themed birds burst into the room. Each bird was a different shade of red, with sleek metallic feathers that glinted in the light, and their eyes glowed like the iconic Coke label. They swarmed Jenna, pecking at her clothes, pulling at her hair, knocking over her entire streaming setup. The chat was in chaos, with donations pouring in, thinking this was the most elaborate prank she'd ever pulled. "Stop it! Get away!" Jenna shrieked, trying to swat the birds away, but they only grew more aggressive. One bird perched on her mic, staring straight into the camera, its beady eyes narrowing as if knowing the entire Twitch audience was watching. Suddenly, her screen flickered. Her stream was hacked, her layout replaced with an old-school Coca-Cola commercial. The jingle played, but it was distorted, like it was being screeched out by the birds themselves. The screen displayed, "The Coke that refreshes forever." Her viewers, now fully freaking out, spammed "Call 911" and turned off the stream. But Jenna was too busy fighting off the horde of Coke birds. They pecked at her with mechanical precision, and with every hit, she felt her skin grow cold, her veins pumping with an icy chill. She stumbled backward, clutching her chest, realizing her heart was beating faster and faster, like carbonation bubbling up inside her. She reached for her phone, but it was too late. The birds circled her, their crows merging into one eerie melodic sound. They lifted her off the ground, their wings beating like some twisted soda-themed ritual. Her screams grew weaker, fading into the ominous jingle that still played on the screen. The last thing her chat saw before the stream cut to black was a Coca-Cola bird sitting proudly on her keyboard, tapping the keys as if typing out the message, "Share a Coke with Jenna, or else." Later, viewers would swear that if you tuned into Jenna's old streams, you could hear faint bird calls in the background. Some even claimed they saw red feathers floating across the screen, like she was still there, trapped in an eternal Coca-Cola commercial, begging to escape. But those who investigated further always received the same cryptic message: "You can't escape the refreshment."